All right, everybody, how you doing? This is Captain Jack, and I know you're expecting the normal Thursday night show, which is you don't know jack about sports. We'll do that, but because of I wanted to make sure that I didn't not have my weekly firing of broadsides, we're going to do that one first. And again, this one is a pure Raider-centric pod / webcast. I want to get it out there and put it out for all the folks here. You know, Raiders. Can be talking that the entire channel, the entire time here. I want to thank all those that are watching right now. Hopefully we'll get some more people coming aboard real soon. And it's always good to hear from you. As Marty Shottenheimer used to implore upon his team when he was the coach in Kansas City, it's Raiders week. And the flip side of that, obviously, of course, is that it's Kansas City week. And this game has got a lot of things that we need to worry about and or work for. Not per se worry about. I'm sorry, maybe that's the wrong words. But this game is of vital importance for the remainder of the season. And I'm going to show you why. I'm going to tell you why. And also, we're going to be joined tonight. There will be a segment each week with my friend, the historian, Raider historian, will be Houston Raiders Steve Hawes will be joining us for his segment, The Raiders Vault. He's probably going to be calling in. Hopefully, in fact, I need to put my phone number up. This is not a phone-in broadcast. So please, if you don't mind, the next broadcast will be a phone-in broadcast. So we will just be hearing from Steve tonight on the phone. He's not going to be joining us on video this time out, maybe each time out, but we'll see. Hopefully we can get Steve in here on video as we go forward in the process. But we are going to be doing our version of this broadcast, and love to see what you guys have to say about it. And I'm going to start off, obviously, with the head-to-head. The Raiders do not own the head-to-head with Kansas City. Currently, I think it's 120 games. You guys can do the math for me. We are losing to them on the total. We've beaten them 53 times. We've lost to them 65 times. And then back in the old days when you actually had ties, we've tied them twice. Now, the Chiefs are one of 6 teams. I had to do a quick math here. One of 6 teams that the Raiders do not have a better than 500 percentage with. And if the Raiders have a 500 percentage with a team, and there are some teams where the Raiders have a 500 percentage, I didn't put them in here. But less than 500, only 6 teams the Raiders currently have that negative aspect with. And good evening to you as well there, Ed. Good to see you. And thanks for coming in, Don Webb, Ed Winchell, and Robert Hawk. Those teams are the Ravens, the Packers, the Texans, the Jags, and the Patriots. And what's interesting is that the Ravens, the Texans, and the Jags are relatively new. So obviously the Raiders haven't played them a lot, and they played these teams when they were basically god-awful the last 20 years. It's even bad to considering that we have a losing record against the Jags. That's just horrible to even think about. And another thing you might want to consider as well, that even if you put together the Ravens/Browns record against the Raiders, and hello to you as well there, Vicky, it's still on the negative side because I put the Browns and Ravens records together, And overall, the Raiders are 17-18 against the Browns/Ravens franchise. So they're still one game below 500. 1-1 in the playoffs. We beat the Browns in that very memorable playoff game, Red Ride 88 up on the lake, where Mike Davis was doing so much for the Raiders. But we also lost the Ravens in the AFC Championship game when they went on to win the Super Bowl. And I'm sure all y'all know that as well. Some other key stats here are things I'd like to talk about. Is we're going to go over the rivalry games, but we'll do that. Well, I think when we have Houston Steve come in, we'll talk about that as well. Right now, Kansas City is ranked third in offense with 3,681 yards or 409 yards per game. Okay. They have 286 points, or they're averaging 31.8 points a game. Again, they're ranked third. They're ranked sixth in scoring offense. They're ranked also sixth in defensive points allowed, which is 183 points total, or 20.3 points per game allowed. As far as turnovers, they have 9 interceptions and 5 fumbles, so 14 total turnovers by that defense. The Raiders are ranked ninth in offense with 3,330 yards or 370 yards per game. They've scored 255 points, or they're averaging 28.3 points per game. So very close to the Kansas City offense when it matters that. They're 19th in scoring offense, though, which is, and this is NFL-wise, by the way. They're also 18th in defensive points allowed. Again, below middle of the pack, 241 points given up, or 26.8 points per game allowed. That's actually gotten better because the Raiders were up at like scoring 30 and letting people score 30. So they've actually dropped that. And that's a lot of that has got to do with the last 3 games where they beat the Chiefs, or sorry, they beat the Browns, they beat the Chargers, and they beat the Broncos. And again, that's helped out the last several games. The Raiders have 10 turnovers by the defense, 7 interceptions. Remember, 4 of those were just last week, and 3 fumble recoveries. Again, we're going to be talking about rivalry games, and I'll see if we got any other things in here. Okay. Hey, and I'll let that pass. Yeah, Matt, we know, Matt, but thanks for being here. Oh, sorry to hear about your father's death, Matt. So again, condolences out to you on that. What was that? I was looking at some stats. I believe they gave the Ravens the top defense. But again, we ain't worried about that right now, Vicky. If we play the Ravens, we'll worry about that at a later time. Okay, I'm expecting Steve to call in pretty soon, but we'll start off with a lot of the different things. And one of the main things is that, and we'll get into this as well because it is the big portion of why I have Steve on board here. Steve tonight is going to be talking about probably the most memorable game, which was the game with Kansas City. I believe it was 1970, but we'll get into that as well. Leading up to that, let's talk about the rivalry itself between the Raiders and the Kansas City. It basically started for the most part in 1967 when the Athletics, which was the baseball team, moved from Kansas City to Oakland. And so there was that big rift where you take out their baseball team and move it to Oakland, which was, again, a rival in the AFL between Kansas City and Oakland. So you take away their baseball team and you have that natural rival with the Raiders there in the AFL Western Division. And it definitely came to a head starting in and around 1967. And actually adding insult to injury as well was when the Royals were placed in the same division in 69. So you had that natural rivalry, KC Oakland, for years and years in football, heated up again in baseball, got really heated way back when. And the Raiders and the Chiefs also are known for a lot of swapping of the players. We might have actually spoken about that last week. You know, Willie Brown, the great defender, came over from the Broncos because he originally was a Bronco first. And there's been a lot of that. But I tell you, most of the, I guess I don't want to say inbred, but the familial ties between Kansas City and Oakland, with a lot of people changing hands. You guys know, obviously, the most famous one is Marcus Allen, after his rift with Al Davis, leaves Oakland, or actually then Los Angeles, to go out and play in Kansas City. I won't get into that, but he had his reasons. Al had his reasons, and so that's what happened there. Chester McLaughlin also, when he became a little bit disenfranchised with the Raiders, went from the Raiders over to Kansas City. Earlier on, actually, Tom Flores left Oakland to become the quarterback in Kansas City, and later returned to be in the staff of John Madden. So he went from Oakland to Kansas City as their quarterback. He was actually the backup quarterback to Len Dawson when they won their Super Bowl. So Flores has a Super Bowl ring with Kansas City as well. And again, congrats on him pretty much going into the Hall of Fame this year, the way it's looking like. But a lot more memorable players left Kansas City and became great Raiders. Probably at the top of that list is Rich Gannon. Rich Gannon was a traveling quarterback for many years. Went from various teams, bounced around, was a Viking for a little while, and then got bounced out of Minnesota, went to Kansas City, and he was their starting quarterback off and on for years and years. And when John Gruden got here to the Raiders out in Oakland, he was looking for his quarterback. He had that quarterback, that memorable quarterback, number one. I can't remember his name because he's so memorable. All arm, no head. $5 million arm and a 50-cent head. And I'm sure that we have that. Let me get back to some of these comments. Permission to come aboard granted there, Raider China. And Becky Gutzler, thanks for being here as well. Yeah. Well, Ed, that's up between Al and Marcus. And there obviously a lot that we don't know about. But again, Rich Gannon came over and we got rid of Jeff George, and Gannon was the quarterback that John Gruden wanted because he was smart and he would do things in a way that he wanted to. He would not give up the ball. He was the concisive quarterback that John Gruden wanted. And again, Rich Gannon, probably the most famous of those transplants from Kansas City to the Raiders. Andre Rison came over, I think, like a year later. Albert Lewis, the great defensive back, and James Hasty, another great defensive back, originally were Chiefs and came over. And we'll talk more about James Hasty in a little bit as well. And Harvey Williams, who I'm sure y'all remember as one of those players with basically had like the 6-inch neck. Good old Harvey Williams at running back went from the Chiefs to the Raiders. And we'll talk over as well. I'm kind of waiting on hopefully Steve to call in, and I can't use my phone because I'm using it as a second screen right now. So such is life. That's where that extra screen is coming from that you see. I have the one screen on, and then that second screen is with my other phone. I figured out how to use it so it's not. It seems to be coming in and out, but oh well. It'll muddle through. No pun intended on that one. But again, we'll go into some of those different things. I'm going to also start, before we go into the rivalry itself, some things that are very important. Let's see here. See some more chime. There you go. Don with his comment. We all know where we're going with that, Don. They don't know. But again, welcome to the show. And again, this is Captain Jack's Firing a Broadside. We'll be doing the You Don't Know Jack About Sports show in a bit, and I'm thinking that's Steve. Yes, it is. Steve, this is Captain Jack. Can you hear me, sir?
Yes, sir. How are you doing, Captain?
I'm good, partner, and I made sure that I was ready for you, and I gave them a little bit of the rivalry, but I wanted to hear from you. And again, folks, we're going to have a segment on this show each week. I've invited the Raider historian, otherwise known as Houston Raider Steve, to come aboard, and I'm going to kick it off to you, Steve. We appreciate all your insight as you give it to us. Now, granted, you and I pretty much have a lot of different knowledge levels that we like to impart upon those as well. But it's always good to hear from other folks. And I wanted to leave it up to you. I'm going to have other memorable games. We'll talk about that after your segment. But I wanted to leave it to you again. This is Inside the Raiders Vault with Houston Raider Steve. And Steve, tell us all about the most heated game. The rivalry intensifies between the Chiefs and the Raiders. Go ahead, sir.
Well, Captain Jack, it's an honor, pleasure to speak with you tonight, but I do have a heavy heart tonight. I just found out 15 minutes ago on Facebook that one of my classmates that I knew for 45 years, we played football together. He was our quarterback for our middle school team, and tragically, he was murdered in his driveway this afternoon, and his daughter, it was by an extended family member, and then that person pulled a gun and killed themselves. So this is it might be really tough for me to get through this tonight, Captain, but I'll try to do the best I can. He was just a great person all around. He made money in finance over in the Orient, Asia, in Tokyo, and then he turned himself over and gave all the time and represented Christ in his community, and he gave a lot back, which is what we all do in our own separate communities. But so his name was Matt Harris. So everybody say a prayer for Matt Harris, his family here in Houston. He was very great guy, and everybody loved him. But anyway, it's gonna be hard for me. Anyway, so what the deal is that back in as you know, the very last playoff game that was played in the AFL was 1969, I believe, between the Raiders and the Chiefs. And not very many people know this, but they used to play in the Municipal Stadium in Kansas City. It was also a baseball stadium. Everybody knows about the Kansas City Monarchs. They used to call it the longest-running, most successful Negro League team. And Jackie Robinson played for that team in 1945. Before he was signed by Branch Rickey from Ohio Wesleyan, of course, with the Dodgers and everything. Jackie broke the color barrier. He was great in track, football, and, of course, baseball. He was well known for all three other sports at UCLA. So anyway, to get to my story and everything, November 1st, 1970, the Chiefs were world champions the previous year. Obviously, they defeated the Minnesota Vikings down at Tulane Stadium down in New Orleans, down in the Garden District. It was a real popular place. They had Super Bowls here, obviously. That was one of the first ones. But anyway, so the Raiders were behind 14-17, and there was less than 2 minutes left in the game. All Bernie Dawson had to do was a third down. All he had to do was get 3 or 4 yards, and then they would ice the game and won the game and won the division. He called the play in the huddle that he was going to do a sweep. And he ran the sweep to the right. He ran, I think, about 8 yards it was. He fell down on the ground. Ed Davidson came running at full blast, didn't slow down, and hit him in the small of his back with the crown of his helmet. And then, of course, Otis Taylor was nearby, and he started fighting with Ben Davidson, and then there was a big brawl on the field and everything. And after they finally separated all that out and everything, before that happened during that play, Raider Homer gave an interview with Drew Bowie that was a Raiders player at the time. And he played, I think, from 69 to 72 for Al Davis. And anyway, he ran on the field, and also Ed Buddy, the famous guard that played for the Chiefs and everything. He was one of the, he was just a great guard. And his son Brad also played. They're the first father and son duo that were drafted in the first round that played in the pros. Both in the first round. Anyway, they were locked in there, and Bowie asked Ed. He said, "Are we going to fight?" And he says, "No, I don't really." Ed says, "I don't really feel like fighting, so we'll just kind of, hold each other's arms like we're trying to fight each other, but we're just kind of pushing off on each other. But we're not going to trade blows or anything. We're just going to let this thing, run its course on this fight. We're just going to act like we're pushing and shoving and everything, make it look like we're really into this as much as they are, but we're not. I'm tired." Anyway, so what happened on that? So because of that, there was offsetting penalties and everything, which means that the yardage that Dawson had was nullified. So they had then they had the next play. They had to replay the play over again. They got stopped, and then they punted the ball. And eventually, the Raiders moved down the field, and they said that Blanda kicked at least a 50-yard field goal. And you remember the images, Captain, of the defender for the Chiefs jumping as high as he could, trying to hit it. It just barely went over the crossbar. So what happened is the Raiders won that game, and they won the division, and Kansas City did not make the playoffs. And they passed a rule. Actually, after that season, they said that there was a legal hit at that time. Davidson's hit was a legal hit. So I'm going by the notes here. And after the game, the NFL thought better of that. Then after that game, in the 1976, the NFL had a rule change. The rule is rule number 12, Section 2, Article 6G. It says, the rule prohibited the defender from running or diving into or throwing his body against or on a ball carrier while the ball carrier falls or slips to the ground or is untouched, and they make no attempt to advance or before or after the ball is dead on the ground. They're just laying on the ground. You can't take a cheap shot like that. That's the Ben Davidson rule that we all know about. The amazing thing about that also is he was known as being one of the dirtier players. He was the dirtiest player is what they said. They called him the villain, Ben Davidson. But what it was and everything is he was he played for the University of Washington out of high school. His dad was a police officer. He grew up in East Los Angeles. I think it's El Serrano. He played at Woodrow Wilson High School. He was on the 59 and 60 Rose Bowl winning teams for the Huskies. 59, they won against the Wisconsin Badgers, and 60, they won against the Minnesota Golden Gophers. He was drafted in the 4th round by the New York Giants, and then he was traded in training camps for the Green Bay Packers. Davidson was, and then after that, he went to Washington, and then he was cut in the 1964 training camp because he had weight issues. Al Davis picked him up as a free agent. It was just a total gem of refining, as we would say. And his head coach at Washington was by the name of Jim Ward.
Hey, Steve, and I appreciate you going through with the segment, especially after your loss. But I think we got to move on. And again, I appreciate all that you've done. And again, my deepest condolences to you on your loss. And we'll work on getting you through some more segments each week for the historical pieces of the Raiders' opponent that week.
Yes, sir. I just wanted to say that Al Davis had a picture in the Raiders headquarters of him knocking off the helmet of Joe Namath, and apparently he broke his jaw on that play.
Yeah.
And Larry Granson says the Raiders were known as being cheap shot bugs taking shots at Joe Namath, and that's all I had to say about that. I just wanted to say that last part. But anyway, that was one hell of a game. That's my segment on that. And as you know, both players, it's just been such a heated rivalry, Captain. It goes back, it's probably the oldest rivalry next to the Broncos. It goes back to the Flores club of the 8 owners that started the AFL back in the day. Right.
And again, it goes without saying that, that was the most intense portion of the rivalry. And again, Steve, thanks for your input tonight, and we'll look forward to further things from you.
No problem. I just wanted to say this is dedicated to Ricky Ricardo. We all love the man, and we all love Tina. It's been a tough week and everything because he did so much for the community. He always gave back. He always showed more interest than other people and would always greet you with a smile, a handshake, and ask you how you're doing, tell you you're the best. And he really made everybody feel like they're the most important person out there. It's like John Wayne, they said he used to be like that. He used to make me feel like you're the most important person in the world. We love you, Ricky. We miss the hell out of you. And we'll see you on the other side, and we'll keep the torches lit for you. And God bless you and Tina.
All right. Hey, thanks again, Steve. We'll check out with you next time. That was Steve, and with a long history of what was going on with the Raiders and Chiefs. I obviously wanted to go back a little bit further, and again, that was the intense portion of the rivalry, and we'll go on from there. But before we go on from that, obviously some key stats that I want to throw out there as well, and some key segments is the fact that Josh Jacobs is fourth in the NFL in rushing right now with 700 yards, ranked number 4. And is only ranked 4th because Ronald Jones of the Bucs is 30 yards ahead of him. But remember, Ronald Jones had 98 of those yards on one run last week. So you take away that one run, and Josh Jacobs would most likely be 3rd in the NFL. And one of the other things I wanted to say here is that the Kansas City is definitely looking at this game as something that they really, really want to put in their pocket. And this is a direct quote from Travis Kelce. A lot of people care about this game like it is their Super Bowl, talking about the Raiders. That's how they acted by doing 2 laps around the stadium when they won it. Personally, I take pride in every single division game that we play, knowing that the fans, it's everything to get those division wins. Gruden has denied it being a big deal about the lap around Arrowhead last time we won in Kansas City earlier. You guys have seen all of the articles about how Andy Reid took it personally. It's going to be a bloody game. And I want to go back to, again, some of the more memorable games. I guess, and Steve alluded to it, in 1968, because the Raiders and the Chiefs had tied, they did a play-in game in order to see who was going to go to the Super Bowl, or actually face the New York Jets, and the winner of that game was going to go to the Super Bowl. They had split each of their games earlier in the season. The Raiders had won by 17. Chiefs had won the first game by 14. But the last game, Oakland came out and just really whooped that ass, 41-6. They beat the Chiefs, but lost next week to the Jets, who went on to win Super Bowl III. The very next year was when in 69, the Chiefs had gone out to an impressive 11-3 record. They had a showdown with the Raiders at 12-1-1. But I tell you again, this was at the AFL Championship game. The Chiefs won, and they only scored 17 points, but obviously 17 points was better than the stingy 7 that they gave up to the Raiders that day. And then, obviously, as you all know, the Chiefs went on to win the Super Bowl the very next time that they played against the NFL's Minnesota Vikings. And a lot of people think they don't remember that Joe Kapp was actually the quarterback of the Vikings during that Super Bowl, not Fran Tarkenton. Tarkenton only lost 3 of those Vikings Super Bowls. In 91, the Chiefs had a 3-game sweep of the Raiders. In the first contest, the Chiefs came from 11 points down in the fourth quarter to win 24-21. In the next game, Schottenheimer's defenses, which they were definitely known for in the 90s, they held off a furious comeback by the Raiders to prevail 27-21. And then in the wild card, the Raiders played Kansas City, and Kansas City won 10-6. And that was the first of a rare 3-game sweep that Kansas City had over the Raiders. In 1995, in this game, I remember implicitly. I call it the ref pick play. The Raiders and the Chiefs go into overtime. and a pass. I believe it was Jeff Hostetler was the Raiders quarterback at the time, was going towards Tim Brown. And Tim Brown got picked off or like a pick play by an official. So because Tim Brown wasn't able to go through his route, James Hasty ended up getting the ball because, again, Brown ran into the official, or the official wasn't where he was supposed to be. James Hasty grabbed the ball, ran it back 64 yards for a touchdown, 4:27 in overtime, and the Chiefs won 23-17. And I was at Arrowhead. I still remember that game to this day. And even Hasty said, quote, "It was just a freak play." But yeah, getting picked off and having the official run a pick. Oh my goodness. I'm sure a lot of you that are Raiders fans more recently know about the turning the corner game. Gruden 1.0, his second season with the Raiders. And the Raiders were 7-8 going into Kansas City. And again, it didn't really look good for them. But the Raiders were down immediately, 17-0. To Mark Vanover, that real speedster that Kansas City had back when. Think of the late 90s version of Hill, right? And he also had some troubles too. But that, it's so weird how they're very similar. To Mark Vanover and Hill, just guys that just got into a lot of trouble. Anyway, he had an 84-yard punt return. James Hasty, this was prior to him going to the Raiders, had a 33-yard interception return off of Rich Gannon. And then Pete Stoyanovich had a 33-yard field goal. Well, the Raiders had to come from behind, and they did it starting with a Marquise Walker, who blocked the Daniel Pope punt. I remember it, returned it 20 yards for a touchdown. He blocked it, and Kenny Shedd, who was our special teams guy, is the guy who actually got the ball and put it in. And Joe Nedney kicked a game-tying field goal from 33 yards out, and then the game winner from 38 yards out. At the end of regulation, Pete Stoyanovich missed a 44-yarder that would have given Chiefs the win. But nope, the Raiders won that game. They made their record to 8-8. And Kansas City, which was 9-6 and would have won the division had they won that game, again, they fell to 9-7, but they didn't even go to the playoffs. 9-7 did not make it because Seattle took the division at 9-7, and the Dolphins edged out the Chiefs for the tiebreaker for the wild card. And again, it was said that Gruden later joked that his job was in jeopardy with Al Davis, and Al Davis even joked about it too. And Gruden did a victory dance on the Arrowhead turf, and I remember that as well, along with Darrell Russell being in the locker room stating, "If we ain't going, y'all ain't going." And that was the impetus to what was the start of the great Gruden years. Again, 8-8, both years, and they needed that big win in Kansas City. I remember watching that game. I really did. I actually watched it from Georgia on my way down to Florida. And again, Gruden 1.0 after that, then the very next year was when the Raiders started being an avid playoff participant. And then there was three very memorable Thursday night games as well. In 2014, which was Derek Carr's first year, his first win as a Raider actually came in Week 11. The Raiders had an 0-10 record. I remember that they had just played San Diego in San Diego, and I drove from San Diego up to Oakland for the back-to-back. It was a Thursday night game. It was raining sheets, and the Raiders came and beat Kansas City that night 24-20. In fact, Latavius Murray had a very long touchdown run and got knocked out, and I saw him the very next day over at the headquarters, and he said he was okay. But Murray had that long touchdown run, got knocked out. The Raiders held off Kansas City, and actually Alex Smith was still their quarterback. And also 50 Who was offsides, and thank God that Justin Tuck called timeout so that the Kansas City couldn't get a playoff, because it would have given them an impetus to get a first down and all the things after that. Justin Tuck saved the game. I remember that game because that was Carr's first win as a Raider. And folks, it was the first win that I saw in Oakland. I remember that game well. In 2016, in December, the Raiders went out to Kansas City. It was another Thursday night game. I call it the Guidewire game because Carr was going for a long pass to Mari Cooper. And it was a long pass, and all of a sudden you can see the ball's trajectory just drop like a missile. It hit one of the guide wires that was from the cameras that was going over the stadium, and you couldn't really see it because it was so cold and dark in Kansas City that you couldn't see the guide wires, but you saw the pass, and it would have been a touchdown. Cooper had his man beat, and that ultimately would have been the winning touchdown on that game. But the ball hit the guide wire, and instead of falling into Cooper's hands, and I think he would have caught it, but then again, with Cooper, you don't know, it dropped immediately down, and the Raiders ended up losing that game 21-13. And probably one of also the most memorable games. I tell you, if the Raiders ever play Kansas City, I say that they need to play them on a Thursday in Oakland. One of our games, they should always make a Thursday night game in Oakland. I kid. Because the last time they played in Oakland, it was in 2017, and it was the last play from scrimmage, basically, but it took 3 times to do it. There was no time on the clock because every time the Raiders would score or something like that, there would be an offensive penalty or a defensive penalty or something like that. So on the third iteration of the final play, Carr throws a quick zip to 15, was Michael Crabtree, who had put his knees down, both knees down, inbounds in the front top corner of the end zone for what was then the tying point. And then the extra point afterwards put it at 31-30. The Oakland Raiders win. So again, lots of memorable people with Kansas City and Oakland and all those games. And hopefully you're enjoying the broadcast for the firing of broadsides where it's Chiefs Raiders. I want to go over the injury report right now as well. This is the important things. 3 players didn't practice for the Chiefs. That's running back Darrell Williams and Clyde Edwards-Helaire, and defensive end Taco Charlton, who has a fractured ankle. Mike Remmers and with a rib injury, and Rashad Felton, who's a cornerback, were listed as limited for the second straight day. There are 2 players that are on IR that did return to practice on Wednesday. Alex Okafor, and a cornerback is L'Jarius Sneed, but they're not on the injury report because they haven't been activated. Eric Fisher and Mitchell Schwartz are both offensive linemen activated from reserve COVID list. Schwartz still missed practice with a back issue, and Eric Fisher, their tackle, should be able to go on Sunday night. And as you know, the Raiders have about 11, if not more, players that are on the COVID list. I know that, and I can't read them all, but it's basically, I know that the starters were Abram was on the COVID list. Hankins is on the COVID list. I know Littleton was already on the COVID list, so this is that he was another person. They have 11 people on the COVID list, most of them on the defensive side of the ball. And also Cleve Farrell. From what I'm told, and this is the important thing, from what I'm told, the Raiders will be able to play if they pass their tests before the game. Colton Miller was still limited, and Maurice Hurst, both of them were ankle injuries, were still limited. And Jalen Richard, with that chest injury from that pop from last week against the Broncos, he missed the workout. It's likely, I would think, that Richard will probably miss the game. But again, we'll have to worry about Miller. at tackle, and Maurice Hurst. For the Raiders as well, looking at their injuries, these folks were limited. Eric Harris, Hurst, as I stated, Ingold, limited as well. Colton Miller, I stated, was limited, and Sam Young was limited. I tell you, we have that we have that revolving door at right tackle, and I tell you, we definitely would. It'd be nice to have a right tackle back. If not, we're going to have Omame back there at right tackle, and it looks maybe Brandon Parker will play right tackle if Colton Miller is there. Full practices for Nick Morrow, Carl Nassib, and Kashawn Nixon, who had an ankle knee, and a groin, respectively. And again, Jalen Richard just did not practice. This was as of the last practice today. I've already stated that this game is very important for the Raiders. The Chiefs have a tough set of remaining games. Next week, they're going to Tampa to play the Bucs. They also travel to Miami later on in the year, and also travel to New Orleans later in the year. They host Denver and the Falcons and the LA Chargers. But again, at Bucs, at Dolphins, at Saints, those are three tough games. This is why this game is so important for the Raiders. If the Raiders were to win, they'd be 7-3, and the Chiefs would be 8-2. And I'm pretty sure that the Chiefs are going to lose at least one more of those games. If the Raiders can keep it at 8-3, even with the Chiefs in record, and win this game, this could be for the AFC West. For the AFC West. Now, granted, the Raiders have some tough games remaining, but they're hosting, which means at home in Vegas, Indianapolis and the Dolphins and the Chargers. Their away games are obviously the Jets away, cold weather, but the Jets are winless. But don't overlook the Jets, and we'll talk about that as well. Obviously, after Thanksgiving in Atlanta, they will be going down there to Atlanta, and then the last game of the year in Denver. So again, it looks like those games are going to be a little bit easier for the Raiders, but we'll see. We'll see on that one. I'm thinking that if we aren't devastated by COVID, I think the Raiders will win this game. And I hope that you guys will agree with me there. It's I'm calling it a Raiders victory. I already did for the one channel that I was on, and we'll go from there. I also want to know that, again, please be sure to join me on Saturday, where I will be interviewing the great Lester Hayes. Make sure that the word gets out that Captain Jack will be interviewing Lester Hayes. This will be the end of the Firing of Broadsides report, or the pod webcast. I hope you've enjoyed it. Please be sure, wait a few minutes, come back, and I'll be having my regular Thursday You Don't Know Jack About Sports show. Thanks for all that were here. We'll see you on the next broadcast.